I'm tickling my brain right now. Oh, it feels nice. You guys should probably leave. What's up, Gear Mortals? Trey Xavier here. I am with Senor Warren Huart from England. We're at Spitfire Studio. It's just the one. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Great. I am, as you have instructed me many times, having a marvelous time.
Okay, good. I'm glad to see that.
Recording and not mixing. I don't mix. This is a giant, gaping
Which way you're going with this?
gap in my knowledge. I don't almost ever play acoustic guitars. I don't really record them or look at them or think about them or anything. And I need you to show me and the folks at home how to get this into the computer via recording.
In the computer.
The files are inside the computer.
computer.
I just don't know how to record acoustic guitars, and I want you to help me out.
When I talk to guys like Dave Jordan, Michael Beinhorn, like guys that made all the records that we grew up listening to, which we all consider.
Those sound like super made-up names. But
Dave Jordan and Michael Beinhorn.
yeah, I've never heard those before, but
Like
people at
Alice
home
in
will know.
Chains, Soundgarden.
Oh, cool.
Small bands like that.
Yeah, little local guys.
Local guys. They record a lot of acoustic guitars. Dave would do things like he would mic an acoustic guitar, but he'd also take a DI output and put that into an amp and go through pedals and then blend it in with like really heavy guitars.
Yeah.
And you just get like a weird edge. Like if you just play like any kind of chord sequence. The tonality of that is nothing like a distorted guitar. But it doesn't necessarily have to be loud. And then another trick that people do, and the miking we can do here, you can mimic, is they'll mic the electric guitar in the control room. They'll have everybody on headphones, and then they'll mic the strings on the electric guitar as well.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And for those of you who are interested, may have already noticed this from the Michael Beinhorn videos that we've done, is that Chris Cornell would play a Gretsch. A lot of those heavy, heavy tones, the rhythm tracks, were him. In fact, we listened to Spoon Man the other day, and he told me that both of the guitars on the left and right are all Chris Cornell, all the riff guitars, all the rhythm stuff. So you've got like a jazzy kind of Gretsch thing. There's a Vox over there, for instance, with F-holes. So you can actually mic that as well. Plus you've got the amps going, and you don't have to blend it so suddenly it's a folk record. It's still a rock album, but it just adds a weird kind of texture to it, an interesting texture. There's a couple of really basic things, and we're going to use super cheap microphones because frankly, most of the time these days, we record our acoustic guitars with very inexpensive mics because we don't want this, the sound hole. Let me show you. I'm grabbing a $149 microphone. It is a Lewitt 240 Pro. And if I put it on the sound hole, strum that. You can put it on the headphones. Basically what you're hearing, he says, pulling out the cable.
They're wireless now. It's fine. Which side's which?
You know the rules with headphones. Everybody watching knows the rules. The cable is always on the left.
Oh, well, you handed it to me without the cable, so how was I to know? Oh, thanks.
But
hello.
just so you know, that's the rule. Now listen, it's a big, boomy, wolf tones, I think.
You don't want that at all.
But what I love about slightly more inexpensive large diaphragm and small diaphragm mics is they don't have that much of a bass response. The first thing they do is they tend to be, cheaper mics tend to be a little bit more hyped in the high mids, which is rather nice for acoustic guitars.
All right.
So what I would do is move this to like the 12th or 14th fret, a couple of inches away. It's twisting it slightly away from the sound hole isn't going to hurt either. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so that's a pretty typical thing. 12th to 14th fret, that area there, back a few inches. Now, you've got to deal with certain things, and one of the big things is like some guys or girls that play acoustic guitar are doing this. They're having a bit too much fun. The way really to get around that is just to pull back. We're not going to change the gain on the mic at all because we're just showing the difference. And if I go over and change the gain and the tones each time, it's going to give you a full sense. But you can now move around a bit more and have a bit more fun. So you might get a little bit more of that boominess there, but nowhere near as much as if you start to move here, and that's That's not fun. The other thing about acoustic guitar is, you know, be mindful of the room you're recording it in. If your room's super live, that might be amazing. You're going to get the sound of the room bleeding into it. However, you might not want that. You might want that really dry, you know, Wonderwall tone, which we know you love.
Demonetized.
That's one of my favorite tricks, and that's a pretty standard one, 12 to 14 fret. Let's grab a small diaphragm mic, and we have really inexpensive versions of those. All right, so we have the pencil condenser. Now, actually, if this is all you have, frankly, if all you have is a 57, a dynamic microphone, all of these ideas work. If this was a 57, and I've done it many times, you could just do the same thing, 12 to 14 fret. Obviously, this is a condenser, but I've done it with dynamic microphones. For those of you that have already commented, yes, this guitar is a very old guitar. It was rebuilt by Scott Baxendale.
Well,
it also has really old strings on it, which frankly I like.
Oh, controversial.
Well, I don't do, if I'm doing like a real sparkly, which I don't ever, but if I wanted to do a really sparkly, you know, pop track, like super pop, then I would put brand new strings on and I'd play nice and pristine, probably use a light pick and get and nice and pretty. I don't really make that kind of music. I want my acoustic guitar to sound like a Zeppelin acoustic or a Stones one, you know. Sometimes small bodies, like The Secret with the Chili Peppers was always a small body acoustic. And you know, they're just more nasally, mid-rangey, but
it doesn't have that big boomy thing.
But the strings are going to make a huge difference. That is the point. If you want brighter guitar sound, use light, brand new strings.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really play acoustic guitar all that much, but when I do, I like a really thin pick just because when you're strumming, I like to be able to go through the strings and really give it hell without it. But that's going to make a huge difference. I feel like with electric guitar, the pick has an effect on the sound. It has more of an effect on how you play.
Sure.
With acoustic guitar, it's going to be like night and day. Like, can you hand us like a thick-ass pick out of there, like something beefy?
This is definitely thicker than a 60 mil.
That's night and day. Like,
Yeah, sounds like about.
it's louder.
Yeah.
That's going to make a huge difference one way or the other.
Yeah, when I work with you know, session players, we'll have like 4 or 5 picks laid out and we'll listen. And it doesn't take long. It takes like a minute. You go, they might have, I usually start with a 60 mil 0.6, the Jim Dunlop or the Fender one. I've recently, I don't know about you, I got into the Fender picks. This one's a Jim Dunlop. The Fender ones have like really great serrated things. So if you like these, they're really good. Going back to the 57 for a second, just a dynamic microphone. What I think the best acoustic guitar tone I ever got was with a 57 in this position here. I got really great compliment from a great mixer, Mark Ender. He's like, that's the best guitar tone, what do you use? I was like, 57. Expecting him to go, oh, wow, man. And he's like, he basically said, oh, yeah, that's obvious. I'm like, what? He's like, everybody knows a 57 on acoustic's good. So apparently, everybody knows. Okay, so this is an old, I've been doing this since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And I know a lot of people I've seen doing videos, you know, doing the same technique now. But I learned this from my friend Jukebox Butcher, who is or was a BBC recording engineer. He now does outside broadcast and all this kind of stuff. He's really smart, and this is a BBC technique. And the reason why they did it was because they did so many live sessions. The law in England that when you played on the BBC, you would have to re-record. Which is why there's all those BBC Sessions albums. Like all your favorite bands have a BBC Sessions album. Because let's say they went to go and play TV, they would either like mime a certain show or they'd have to do a re-record because it was a union thing. So they had to learn techniques that were more foolproof. And one of those things is this. So it's actually miking the body. This is really, really, it adds a kind of a, I don't know how to explain it. This is the miking for that. It seems to have like a little bit of a bounce to it coming off the body. So this is actually my favorite miking position. This is the LCT 140 Air. I want to say this is like $100 and something. $149 as well. So these are both really super inexpensive microphones. And this is what we use for recording acoustic guitars.
What's the difference between the two, like in terms of how it sounds generally like?
Well, you would typically associate a large diaphragm mic as having more response everywhere, like a wider bandwidth, like higher highs, lower lows. I mean, it's essentially just a larger diaphragm, so it's going to capture more schnizzle. However, small diaphragms have always been very popular for stringed instruments, particularly acoustic guitars, because you don't want that extra low lows. Right. I had a Gefell for years, a 691 MV, which was amazing till somebody smashed the capsule. And it had no low end. Everything below 150 was just gone. So I would just put that on the acoustic guitar and then pull it up on the fader and be like, yep, there you go. And we'd just mix it. There was nothing, you would just blend it. And I suffered a bit, trying to find another mic, and then I found these mics, which are cheap, and they sound pretty close to it. They're not the same thing, but they have, this one in particular, the Air has a little bit of a high end if you want to, but it doesn't have woofy, horrible, ugly low end, which you do not want on an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, like you can EQ things out in post, but
why would you want to?
Why would you want to do that? And if you're overloading the capsule on the low end, like it's not going to sound good.
Yeah, there's some physics there, isn't there? If that capsule's flopping around all over the place, I'm sure it's going to affect how it hears other things. Yeah.
We're kind of thinking in terms of we're recording guitars for a mix. It could be that the guitar, it's just guitar and vocals, or maybe just guitar. I would probably be recording it for a metal song, and it's going to be in a full mix with a bunch of stuff. And if it's got a bunch of woofy low end, it's just going to be muddy and it's not going to sound good.
Both these miking techniques could be used with an electric guitar as well. And if you want to do a full Chris Cornell, you could get like a jazzy guitar, like a Gretsch, a hollow body guitar, put that through the amp. It's a totally unique sound, and also mic it as well and blend it together.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, which is really fun, is when you want to create reverb, take a different source to create the reverb. Like a lot of when you record drums, like Andy Wallace will take a sample and use that for the reverb, not the real snare, because the snare has all the hi-hat bleeding into it. Another nice thing you could do is mic the acoustic. Mic your guitar, like a semi-hollow or electric, and send that to a reverb, but don't use the original clean sound. So you can have this huge guitar, but the ambience will be like, so it's a really kind of twisted way of doing it. I've done that also with DIs on electric. Take a DI of an electric and send that to a reverb, but don't actually use the DI in the mix. Just use the reverb that's created from the DI around a heavy guitar. And it just creates this, that they're the same guitar because of the same performance, but you have this ambience of reverb that just seems to be around it, hovering around it, but doesn't get all gluey and messed up. It just is like this halo of ambience. So there's lots of reasons to do this, and you can have a lot of fun.
Well, I'm always having fun if you're around.
Thank you very much. How much do I owe you? Take cash.
So this technique, among others, is one that people can learn in your fun and exciting courses.
Yes, exactly. We're just talking about it. We do a lot of mixing rock stuff as well. We have courses with Bob Marlette, Ulrich Wilde, doing Galacticon. In fact, I think he did 3 courses, but he has Galacticon, which is, I'm sure we all know that. Cameron Webb, who's done a ton of courses, but one of our biggest courses, of course, is the Motorhead one.
Right.
And it's the last, what's the single? It's the last Motorhead single.
I love the sounds of those Galacticon albums.
They're amazing.
I think...
the song is 7 minutes long, and it's basically like Queen meets metal.
Yeah.
So it's like an insane song to mix. And you get all the multi-tracks, start to finish, of every single one. And you get Ulrich and Bob and Cameron. And David Nossi, as Mixbus TV, does one as well. Well, he's got 2 now. I mean, there's a lot. And we call it the Ultimate Rock Bundle.
The Ultimate Rock Bundle. So we're going to hook all y'all up. There's a link in the description. It's going to be a massively discounted link, and you can get access to all of these.
It's like $1,000 worth of courses or something stupid like that for not very much money.
Yeah.
I think it's $147. The Ultimate Rock Bundle.
That's a very small fraction of $1,000.
Yes. And the great thing is we're doing new courses all the time.
That's going to be handy for people who want to learn what to do with these sounds after they've been captured. It goes into here, and then whoop, 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 into here, and then you've got it. What do you do with it? You've got the tiger by the tail. That's what I need you for. Show me what to do with it. This was fun. Learned how to mic up Grandpa's guitars.
I'm a dad, okay? I'm a dad.
You're not the grandpa. That's another Brendan Small joke. Well, thank you for helping us out.
Thank you, my friend.
Always a pleasure stopping by your place. and
Spitfire Studio
Spitfire
Studios,
Studios, Audio Studios for audio here in the studio. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you haven't already, as always, mash that subscribe button. Floating somewhere on the screen is also going to be the subscribe button for Produce Like a Pro, so that you can subscribe to Warren. Drop us a like, leave us
comments.
a comment.
I will read the comments and answer them.
He will, and he'll probably tell you to have a marvelous time. And
apparently
what
so.
could be better, you know? Even if they're gonna be trolls, you're gonna tell them to have a marvelous time, and they will. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you real soon.